Dell has quietly downsized 10% of its workforce over fiscal year 2026, and 27% of their workforce was downsized between 2023 to 2026. According to their SEC 10K filing, they are down to 97,000 employees from 108,000 employees last year. But what's interesting about Dell, guys, is they didn't have a large layoff announcement like we've been seeing, like we've been covering on the channel. But more on that in a moment, because Dell's downsizing strategy is interesting, nefarious, if you would. But at any rate, it's interesting to know what's going on in the job market, guys, because the reality is that a lot of people are on the unemployment line. And again, we're going to cover that in a little more detail here in just a moment, because the reality is that AI is just ripping through white-collar jobs, and it's only going to grow more rapidly over the coming months and years. Now, if you've been subscribed to the channel and you're watching the videos, I'm bringing you fresh videos 6 days a week, you'll recall that we were covering Challenger and Gray's February jobs report. As we do every month, we look at the job report from the previous month. And there were some really interesting facts that were reflected there, one of which was that the February job report listed 10% of layoffs so far this year are directly attributed to AI, meaning when a company goes through a big layoff, they essentially say, hey, we're going to be using AI for automation and efficiency. We're wanting to free up capital for AI. And so, yeah, 10% of layoffs. And you might say, okay, 10%, okay, that doesn't seem like that much. But in 2025, 5% of layoffs were attributed to AI, and in 2024, only 2 to 3% were attributed to AI. So what we're seeing, guys, is every year, at least for the past 3 years, the number of layoffs attributed to AI have doubled year over year over year. And the question I'm sitting here asking is like, well, where does that end? Where does that stop? Is this a reality that we're going to need to deal with, that the number of jobs that are laid off and attributed to AI, is that going to continue to double? I'll post a link to that video here for the February jobs report. I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of data, a lot of statistics that we get into. And again, understanding the trends of what's happening in these fields is pretty important to remaining relevant, respected, and financially free, which is what we want as men. We don't want to be relying on SNAP payments. You know, we want to have skills that keep us relevant. We want to have respect amongst our peers and our family, and especially our wives and girlfriends. And we want to be financially free. We don't want to be worried about money, right? Well, the world is changing, and so we need to adapt with it. So go ahead and check out that video. I think you'll find it interesting. But again, what's interesting about the Dell layoffs is it wasn't one or two just large bombastic layoff announcement, but it's actually a more quiet downsizing strategy. And again, just by the way, we're seeing these huge announcements of layoffs. I mean, we covered Amazon laying off 30,000 white-collared corporate employees, shutting down tons of office space, thousands of square footage of office space. And just last week, we covered Meta's plan to lay off 20% of their staff, 20% of Meta staff. I was actually pretty surprised to see that. I'll post a link to that video here too as well. Because what Meta's plans, I mean, 20% of their staff, that to me was a huge, huge number. And we'll continue to cover that as that story develops. In any event, again, what's interesting about Dell is not the huge bombastic layoff announcement, but rather the kind of the quiet churning out of employees. And the way they did this is targeted layoffs and restructuring, but they've combined that with hiring slowdowns. They have basically said, we're not hiring anybody new. And this is something that just doesn't, I feel like, get covered, because, and we've talked about it a little bit here on the channel, this is becoming a very common strategy for companies is, you know, we're not firing, but we're not hiring. We're not hiring anyone. So the problem here is obvious. As more companies go through firings, whether they're large and bombastic or slow or they go bankrupt or whatever, you're getting more and more people getting into the job line. The problem is the demand for workers is slowing down substantially. And again, we're going to kind of cover some theories on this in just a moment, but that is important to know. Because it's not just about firing employees that aren't aligned with the company moving forward, but it's about pushing existing members to use the AI tools and to use the AI agents to be more efficient. The companies are saying like, well, we don't necessarily need to hire new people. We're gonna use AI, we're gonna use agentics to empower our teams to be more effective. Now, is that gonna play out the way they expect? I don't know, we'll see. I mean, last year, subscribers will recall we covered Klarna, which fired half of their customer service staff, and then when their quality of customer service dropped because the AI agents were doing wonky things, they said, okay, we actually need to hire people back. So, there's certainly a chance that these companies will overfire, but then the question becomes, well, how do I get rehired? How do I get rehired? And, if you're flaming them publicly, if you're, not doing certain things on social media, if you're burning bridges and relationships, if you're not learning the newest AI tools and strategies, well, you make it hard to get hired. And I've shared this story in the past. When I get on interviews, when I bring on potential employees and potential contractors to work with me, I always ask, how are you using AI to do your job more efficiently? And if they don't have an answer for that, or if they say, well, I'm not using AI, it's like, okay, well, I can't really hire you because this is the world that we live in right now. It's just crucial. It's actually not optional at this point. AI literacy is not an option anymore. It's actually mandatory. So going in a little bit deeper into what's happening at Dell, much like a lot of other companies, is these companies are cutting the low margin labor and looking to invest that in more high margin options, which makes sense. I mean, you're a business. Your basically goal is to make more money, is to have more profit. I mean, there could be other goals too. It could be impact on the world, or it could be creating influence in the marketplace. But generally speaking, a business is in business to create more profit, right? And the issue here is that the companies, especially these tech companies, they're interested in scale. They're interested in innovation. It's about the new level of the business, the next level of growth. And, in the past, Dell was selling PCs and doing traditional IT, and this has become a very low growth, low margin industry to be in. It's just hard to compete in that way. And all our Indian viewers know that we've covered companies like Tata Consulting Services that are just gutting employees now in favor of newer AI tools and practices. IT is just changing so fast, so rapidly. Just a quick aside here. If you've been in IT, like cybersecurity, cybersecurity is going to be so big in the future. I don't think people fully appreciate how important cybersecurity is going to be in this world where we have AI agents going around clicking buttons, and the scale at which and the efficiency at which new scams that are powered by AI can operate. Cybersecurity is going to be that is, to me, a safe industry. It's going to evolve a lot, but it's going to be very, very important. The world is only getting more digital. Right? It's only getting more digital. I mean, pretty soon I'll have these I'll have AI glasses on that can probably give me a script right through my glasses. I won't even need to hold this sheet of paper with all my notes. Anyway, I digress. Cybersecurity. So anyway, Dell is moving away from that traditional structure of PCs and IT and moving more into a high growth, high margin potential of AI infrastructure. They're saying, like, where's the money? Jerry Maguire style, show me the money. Where's the money? And it is in AI infrastructure, AI compute, cloud services, etc. And just another quick aside on this, one of the companies that I'm working with, and I'm doing marketing, and I talk about them from time to time, we're kind of at this inflection point of, okay, we want to double our monthly recurring revenue here over the next 12 months. How do we do that? And, certainly part of that is just making a better experience within the application itself, getting people to stay longer, spend more money, et cetera, converting to annual plans, clogging holes with like churned users and abandoned carts and all that stuff. But we also look at the customer acquisition side, of course, right? And by the way, just as a side note, it's much cheaper to keep the customers you have than it is to acquire new customers. Customer acquisition costs can be very, very expensive. Regardless, we're talking about how do we bring on new customers, and certainly there's different strategies there, one of which is, and the kind of a core fundamental here is, well, are we going to build out a robust sales team to sell our software and do enterprise sales, or are we going to create a really smooth, attributable, product-led sales funnel. And the reality is that a product-led sales funnel that works, that has great data, that doesn't have to worry about egos on the sales team or people churning in and out and then retraining and then all of that nonsense, it becomes a lot more scalable to use a product-led sales funnel rather than a sales team-led sales funnel. So if you, I'm not saying salespeople are dead by any means, but I just wanted to give you some insight into how people on the marketing and sales side and the SaaS scaling side are kind of thinking about these types of things. Regardless, let's get back to Dell. The reality is that their strategy seems to be working. Their strategy seems to be working. They freed up a ton of cash to invest in AI, and their shares have risen 24% this year, 24%. Again, what I think is also interesting about Dell is by not making their stock is rising despite this kind of strategy of, well, we fired a bunch of people, investors. I mean, Meta showed a 3% stock bump after they announced the 20% layoffs. And you guys have seen that. We've talked about this. I see a lot of great comments about people saying, the only reason they're laying people off for AI is because they want to save face and show their forward thinking and bump their stock. And I think there is some truth in that, but Dell hasn't done that, just in their stock is raised regardless, which I think is interesting. This also, by the way, this idea of well, Oracle's not really doing this quietly, but the idea of not hiring people lines up pretty close to what Oracle is doing. And they've been much more bombastic. At least the news articles have been 30,000. Now it looks like Oracle might be laying off as many as 45,000 people. They're in kind of a similar industry. And again, what are they doing? Well, they're going into more scalable business models, AI infrastructure, cloud computing. Again, I'll post a link to this video here because we did cover what's happening with Oracle, and it's a pretty big deal, no doubt. But let me just be clear here on another thing. If you're considering and you're thinking, well, I'm not in tech, Mark, what does this have to do with me? Why should I care? Well, this impacts everyone, okay? So first off, AI is gonna be infused into everyone's work. It doesn't really matter. I covered a few months ago, I covered how AI is replacing roles in auto mechanic facilities. And a friend of mine who works for a very large chain, he's the regional manager for a very large chain of auto mechanics, it was showing me how they're using AI within that business, and it's replacing a lot of work that's done there. I think what they're doing is genius. I know I'm referencing a lot of videos here, guys, but there's a lot of information to share. So anyway, I'll post a link to that video here. But the reality here, guys, is that AI is going to be used in every single business, at least to some degree. I believe that in this new world, everyone's going to need to have some AI literacy, some more than others, no doubt. Even if you're an HVAC tech, you're still going to need to know how to use computers, at least at a basic level. Now, it's this idea of like, well, I like typewriters. I really want to work with typewriters. Well, everyone's on a computer now. You kind of need to know how to use a computer to be functional. So AI is going to impact everyone. AI is just going to be part of our world moving forward, A. But B, the amount of layoffs, the amount of downsizing that's happening is going to make it very, very difficult to stand out in this market. If you're trying to find a job, if you do get laid off, or if you're trying to shift, finding a new job can be really, really difficult, guys. All these hiring services, all these companies are using AI to review all the applications, and people that are applying are using AI agents to apply to companies at scale. So now you've got AI bots trying to look through all these AI applications. I don't know, companies like Indeed, I don't know how they survive this. I really don't. I really don't. I mean, there have been people on this channel that have shared their stories, and if you've got a story, please share it below, that have submitted 200 applications for one callback and no interview, and it's shocking. It's shocking. On top of this, when you're seeing tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of tech guys entering the unemployment line, eventually they're gonna be coming for jobs that aren't necessarily in tech. They gotta feed their family some way, and that creates, that's gonna create a lot of supply and maybe not enough demand. We'll see. There is this utopian vision that AI is going to bring us into this level of mass employment, and everyone's going to be happy, and maybe Elon's right and nobody will have to work. You just work if you want to. I think that's I don't like some of the ideas that Elon has. I don't get behind. That's one of them. I think that work brings purpose. It's important to their relevancy and respect, self-respect amongst respect for others. But I digress. Regardless, the more people are on the unemployment line, the harder it's going to be to get that interview. And getting past AI bots is crazy. The reality is this: skills matter, relationships matter, your strategy and your grit matters when finding work, your testimonials matter, your social media presence matters. Even if you're, and I've said this before, even if you're not a social media guy, which I get, at the very least, you should be spending 15 minutes a week on LinkedIn, just sharing stuff about you, sharing stuff that you're learning. You don't even have to write anything relevant. Just go to LinkedIn, make a search for a topic that's tech savvy and just share it. Just have something. Have something. The reality is we're entering a new era with new problems and new skills that are needed. And quite frankly, I won't even take projects right now. I quit my insurance day job about 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back. But I'll tell you this, I will not take on projects, whether it's with existing clients or future clients, that don't require some sort of upskill or some sort of relevancy. Like if you were saying, hey Mark, I want to hire you, I'll pay you pretty good, this is a problem that's like been solved, but we want you to help us out with it. I say, no, I'm not really interested. I want to be interested in what are the next problems that need to be solved. Like I know what's worked in the past. I want to know what's going to work in the future. At least that's my perspective. And I'm going to share everything that I'm learning right here on the channel. Make sure you're subbed. I appreciate it. Hit someone up in the comments. There's a lot of really, really good dudes down there. And if you like today's video, you will like yesterday's video where it's all about AI, its impact on the market, and what's coming next, because this is important. You want to stay relevant, respected, financially free, you got to be locked in. All right, boys, I'll see you later. Have a great one. Peace.